To say Israel has the right to self-defense is like saying Captain Cook, when he planted the British flag in the Aboriginal nations of what would later become Australia, was somehow self-defense of Britain. We are not living in a situation where Israel can be defined as defending itself. It controls what goes in and comes out of Gaza. It controls the electricity in Gaza. It controls the seas of Gaza. It controls the skies of Gaza. This is not about self-defense, and it never was. You are gaslighting the entire world, and we have had enough. This is not a battle between two equal sides. This is colonialism, settler colonialism in full effect. When you look at a place like Gaza, you are talking about 14 years of some of the most comprehensive sanctions that have ever existed in human history. When you look at the difference between a nuclear-armed, technologically advanced army armed by all of the great powers to people where somehow they find a way to resist their situation, there is zero parity in this context. So who are these combatants that Israel needs to defend itself from? A disabled man with his pregnant wife and their 3-year-old child in a Shateh refugee camp. 7 children were killed with their mothers by an Israeli airstrike. 11 of the children that were killed were already receiving treatment for traumas that they had suffered in the wars of 2008, 2009 and 2014.
You see all of the kids around me? They're just kids. Why wouldn't you just send a missile to them and kill them? It's not fair.
The right of children to live is what we are talking about here. The right of children to live. They've bombed the Palestinian Children Relief Fund's offices, cafes, bookshops, media towers, schools, but also health facilities. 22 separate health facilities have been significantly damaged, including the only COVID lab in Gaza. Several doctors killed in their homes, doctors who were working on treating an already battered population in the middle of a pandemic. It's clear that there is no parity of arms, but even if there wasn't, there's no parity of power. One side is the occupier, the other side is the occupied. It's a key understanding at the United Nations that decolonization is a positive thing. How is it possible that we seem to be more concerned about defending the right of a colonial, settler, ethnic cleansing entity to continue business as usual, which is besieging and ethnic cleansing, than we are bothered by the fact that colonialism still exists in 2021.
The way that my people are settling Judah and Samaria is unfortunately coming at the expense of the Palestinian people.
When you look at figures like Theodor Herzl, credited as the founder of the Zionist movement, their conception was very much a colonial project in the mirror image of European colonialism. There are 440 Israeli colonies in the West Bank, housing over 500,000 illegal settlers who are armed and have control over 80% of the water in the West Bank. Those settlements are deemed illegal by UN Resolution 2334. Who funds those settlements and where does the money come from? Well, Roman Abramovich, prior to receiving citizenship from Israel, moved $100 million from the British Virgin Islands to Elad, which is hell-bent on ethnically cleansing Sheikh Jarrah and has successfully ethnically cleansed many parts of Jerusalem. Who else funds Elad? The Clermont Family Foundation. It has funded the Center for Security Policy, led by Frank Gaffney, an organization which is also funded by Raytheon and Lockheed Martin. The Center for Security Policy gave the foundational work to Donald Trump for the Muslim ban. The Clermont Family Foundation also funded Middle East Forum, led by former employee of the Israeli Ministry of Defense, Greg Roman. Middle East Forum funded the Free Tommy Robinson campaign, and as a think tank were quoted 13 times by Anders Breivik following his massacre of over 70 people in Norway. Another organization that funds Elad is the Hertog Foundation. They also funded the David Horowitz Freedom Center, which employed both Katie Hopkins,
big round of applause for Israel. Yes, come on Israel.
and Tommy Robinson.
Palestine. Why would you support Palestine?
The Hertog Foundation funds the Friends of the IDF and Middle East Forum. The Friends of the IDF had on their board Robert Shillman. Robert Shillman also funded Tommy Robinson. What we see here is an intertwining of interests between Zionist actors around the world who believe that their interests are served by not only funding violent settlement in the West Bank and a war against indigenous Palestinian people, but also pushing domestic Islamophobia within Britain and the United States.
Everything is the Jews, not a single piece for other people, only for us. And we won't give anybody else, just for us.
Today we see raw fascism within the Green Line. There is over 50 different laws within the state of Israel that enshrine inequality between Palestinian citizens of Israel and Jewish Israelis. We see Palestinians being lynched. But what could have more adequately articulated the inhumanity and the racism than seeing young Zionist men in Jerusalem dancing and celebrating while seeing a fire stemming from the courtyard of Al-Aqsa Mosque? This fascism was foretold by Albert Einstein and others. If he was able to be clear about the fascism ahead, why is it today our freedom of speech is withheld from us? Between 2016 and 2018, 500 Palestinians were arrested for posts that they made on the internet, including children. How hideous is it for those well-paid, well-fed members of the British Commentariat who have complained for so long about cancel culture to pontificate about their own rights of freedom of speech, while Palestinian children and even children in this country who advocate for the Palestinian cause do not have that freedom of speech?
Babies and children are getting killed for no reason at all in Palestine.
You've got your racist views, take them somewhere else because they're not welcome here.
You have a sophisticated campaign to depict the victim as the aggressor and the aggressor as the victim. The Zionist project has necessitated a level of censorship, not only in Britain, but in Palestine and in other places around the world. Over 250 Jewish employees of Google have come out and called for anti-Zionist speech to be protected. This is where the change will come from. Not the managerial classes, not the billionaire classes. The change will come from the workers. It will come from the dock workers in Naples who have refused to put those weapons onto ships. It will come from fire brigade workers refusing to take down Palestinian activists, shutting down Elbit systems. It will come from us heeding the call of Palestinian civil society, a unified Palestine that says we will go on strike, we will be ungovernable, so we must too be ungovernable. We exist at a time over the last 5 years where the elite narrative has been permanently discredited. Whether it is through the Black Lives Matter mobilizations, the Extinction Rebellion mobilizations, we are seeing a clear gap between those that decide policy and decide news and the representation of that policy and those that are affected by that policy. We must link together all of these things, as Black Lives Matter bravely did, standing with the Palestinians. It is that type of solidarity which we must build across the world. People are naturally empathetic, and when they see the spectacular forms of violence that have been displayed over the last few days, it is expected that they would respond the ways they have. Well, let's remember that the continuous Nakba is full of slow and less spectacular violence. Do not look away now. Continue to organize, to educate, to learn, and to demand. We can't expect from the mainstream media real, serious coverage that is free from the manipulation of powerful actors. That's why we want you to join Double Down News now on the Patreon and make this happen. Join the future of journalism. Join Double Down News on Patreon.